Um, but what I wanted to do, and I guess I can share with you my thoughts on, what do I want to do with this group? So I've been coaching, I think probably everyone's son at some point on this call, and it's been absolutely fantastic. And when a person hires me to work with their son, to work with their daughter, they're always I do that consultation call, and I get to hear from you like exactly what's happening or what's going on for your athlete. And so that's a really cool thing for me to get really your perspective as a parent to understand, okay, this is what I'm seeing, this is what's happening with my son or daughter, and I could use a little bit of help through that process. So that's been cool. We've been like checking that box. It's been great the last year. I've been able to help roughly about 60 kids so far through that process. But when I went through, I think mostly I went through the life coach school with the intention of not only teaching the young athletes a certain model of how to use both really when situations occur, when life gets in the way, when I feel like I have an issue or a problem, I can always go to and use this self-coaching model. So I wanted to personally, there was a little bit of I guess I had a little bit of a little unfulfillment in regard to I would love to have some adult conversations. Because when I'm talking to your kids, right, some of them are a little bit, they have great conversational skills. They can talk. We have a great one-on-one talk, but they'll only go so far unless I ask them some really amazing questions, but they might not be able to go into depth with those. And that's my mindset here in regards to, I know as a parent, I'll give you quickly my background. I have 4 kids myself, 3 girls and a boy. So my oldest daughter is 23. My son is 21. He's really my only athlete that's played all the sports growing up. And then my 2 younger daughters, 17, she's a senior in high school. And then my youngest daughter is 15. She's done a lot of soccer growing up. And then once COVID hit, I'm out. I just want to hang out with my friends and be home. And so maybe some of you guys experienced that with COVID and some of your kids. But yeah, so my goal and I guess you could say my inner desire is to hear what is happening from your perspective as a parent. Because we're all human and we have thoughts, we have feelings about certain things that happen to us individually. And when something happens to your son or daughter, you're right in the thick of it as well, right? You're a part of it. You feel all the emotions, you feel all the feels that are in that. So you're in the same boat and you're living that same experience. And sometimes it can be a lot. And all of you, we have Ron, you're a junior in high school. Jody, your son's a sophomore. So some of your kids are in high school, some are in junior high, and some are still in elementary school. So there's a wide range. But what I'm seeing in different aspects of being a parent, like the number one word that comes into my mind and what I've learned about in we're all performers, right? Like your athlete is trying to perform and do a job, right? Do a task, and that's to play the game. You're a performer at work, whatever you do for a living. You have certain goals that you set for yourself. And as you could probably guess, sometimes our goals as a parent start to reflect on what our kids are trying to do. And we tend to sometimes get in the way. And so there's a term I use for that, and it's in my study of kind of performance, and it's the term interference. And so we at times become the interference because of how we get involved, how we talk to our kids, just what we do to get in the way. And in a nutshell, at times we want it more than they do. Now, knowing you guys that are on this call right now, Jody, I think I've known you for over a year in the baseball world. Ron, we have a pretty new relationship, a couple months here, and I don't see that with you guys at all, just in our personal conversations. And I want to completely preface this by saying my goal is to coach you guys, to coach parents on things that you might be going through, all in knowing like I am not a perfect parent. I am not a perfect person. I'm just a coach that might be able to see some things that maybe you don't, like because you're in the thick of it. My experience as a player and kind of the mental part of the game, I needed a coach when I really struggled. This was 20 plus years ago at the highest level, and I didn't have that coach that I could go to or talk to. Now, I get also this is a group setting, and Ron's on here. I'm actually coaching Ron one-on-one right now. He's one of my first adult clients I've had, and we've had some incredible conversations, I've thought, over the last few weeks. So I want to open it up so that's why I'm doing this. I want to have a space for where I don't know what you guys are going through personally. Oh, there's Mr. Reese. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
Looks like my brother here with bald. We need as many bald guys with beards on here as possible. Uh, Ron, you got to keep growing yours thicker. We got to
Bold.
get there. We got to get there. And so Reese here, Reese, I've been coaching his son. This is cool. You guys are all in the same boat. I've actually coached your kids in the mental edge program. I've worked with a couple of your kids. I'm a personal hitting coach for your kids. So what I'm trying to build here is a place for you guys to come and share your experience, because you might have a story or what's happened to your son or daughter that can help another parent, and you might be entrenched in it and it's affecting you. Now, Reese, who's just come on board here, and we met a few months ago, Reese was the head basketball coach, women's basketball coach at Basic High School. I bet you could talk for 2 hours about the experiences that you've just had where if you don't, do you mind if I share just briefly what happened with?
No, you can go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
But just in a nutshell, like he literally just resigned from Basic High School because of the craziness. And where's the craziness coming from? Reese, where's it coming from?
Parents.
Oh,
Okay. So,
Parents or him.
yeah.
oh boy.
So what's funny about this is how if you're trying to reach somebody, but literally that it's that one person that you want to talk to would never come to something like this, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
they're not aware of what's happening, or that
that's
what's
fine.
happening for them. So that's why I'm here. I want to be able to open this up to you guys. And since I have in my coaching groups, people that host things like this, they do it more in a webinar form. And you would see just me on here, and then you're all participants where you can't necessarily see. And then the coach would you promote the person to come on. And so say if it was you, Jody, like you and I would have a conversation, and I would do a coaching session with you while everyone else is listening in. That's a whole other thing on Zoom that it's a pretty penny investment. So I'm not quite there yet with going that route. It could eventually at some point come to that, but Jody, let me start with you. You were the first person on the call today. Did you have a question that you thought about when I created this
But
group?
my biggest thing is when Dylan calls you and he's down and depressed, he didn't make it on the list for a game or whatever the reason.
Yeah.
My thing is, how do I respond? Because right now it's call Chad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what do I do?
What can you give me like the latest experience you had, and what happened, and what did you do?
He didn't get on the list to go play a game for Palo. And then, so he's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make right away. He's downing himself. And it's not even the outcome of it, but he's thinking negative right away. And then, what was I going to say? I totally lost track. Then he was calling you about it because I just don't know how to react to that.
Yeah. How did you react? What did you do?
Probably put a wall up. Didn't know what to say.
Okay. So he came to you and said something like, "Hey, Mom, I didn't make the roster for that week."
So he feels, oh yeah, and then that's what he's going to say. And then he went and talked to the coach the next day. Remember, you gave him advice and asked him to ask the coach, why didn't you get on the list? And then he got really offended. The coach did from Dylan asking, so it almost backfired. So that's where I don't know how to.
Yeah. No, this is actually a great thing, because I'll share what happened with the group.
Okay.
If I get a drink here. So Dylan was trying to what's that?
Go ahead.
Well, so he's a sophomore, so he's working with the JV team a little bit here and trying to make the JV team, and has been doing pretty well. And was struggling in the beginning, and then started to gain some confidence and was working through some things. I guess you could say made some big adjustments with his mindset and attitude, right? And so that's as you guys probably noticed with your kids, like that's a huge part, mindset and your attitude with it. And so he wasn't on the roster for this particular, it was just a weekend event.
Yeah.
And I had given him the advice of, it was more of a choice. Like you can go talk to your coach and you can ask him, but if you do that, you need to go prepared, right? You need to go in a certain way, a certain demeanor. Reese, you could probably really speak to this as a coach. When a player comes to you and asks about playing time. So there's one way, it's that when I think I did a podcast about it, where if we did that to my high school coach, he would go, just go run. But that rule was already in place. Like you don't ask coach about playing time at all, right? But if the door is open and the coach constantly says, my door is open, if you want to come talk to me about anything, that should allow a player to that kind of space and feel comfortable coming to talk to a coach. And I don't know how he worded it, Jody, but when he worded it back to me, and I probably would have done the exact same thing as a coach, because it sounded, he was offended by kind of his approach. And I don't know if Dylan went about it the right way. Right. And maybe, and we don't know what the tone was, how he said it. And it didn't turn out well for Dylan. I think coach said, he knows exactly what he said because we weren't there. But the whole point is here, though, Jody, what could you do? So in this situation, so Dylan, he's your circumstance, right? Dylan's not starting. And he's trying to come talk to you about it, right? So what was your thought when he came to talk to you? What was the thought that came into your mind?
Discouraged.
Yeah. So you felt discouraged, right? So when you were discouraged, you said, I put up a wall. Okay. What does that mean really for you?
Now I'm not talking. I'm just, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't talk at all.
So does that feel for you like when I put up a wall, like I can't help him, like I don't have the answer?
That's how I feel. Yeah, exactly.
And so
I don't help him.
And your mom, right? You're like, I'm mom. I don't write the lineup. I don't know what to tell you here.
I can't fix it.
But so in that moment, so when I'm coaching on here and I'm talking to you guys, so coaching you, how would you, do you want to change something here? Do you want to think differently about that situation?
Like, how could I turn it around to be an encouragement somehow, an encouragement back to him rather than, I don't know, I'm discouraged and I don't know what to do. And so now we're both just,
Okay. So what could you do? What are the options here?
I guess I have to approach it differently myself, just like he probably should. Teach him how to approach his coach, maybe. What he really needs to do too, I think, as like you, I watched your podcast and I think you said like practice before you go talk to someone.
And I know he didn't do that.
I know.
No 15-year-olds. No.
I don't need 16. To do that. And as I hear him talk, I'm thinking, yes, you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I don't know. I guess I have to think my approach needs to be different. I don't know.
And you can decide too, like, what kind of parent do I want to be in this situation? Do I want to be, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, right? You're like, oh, honey, it's okay. You just can keep plugging along and working hard.
Well, right? I do say
that's the softer approach, right? Yeah. That's an option. You can be more stern and be like, hey, it is what it is, Dylan.
I'm like, you're not working hard enough, obviously. And
yeah.
And he hard though. I feel bad sometimes.
And that's the thing, right? So let me ask Coach Reese here. So when a player, let's go back to a player. When a player would come to you, I'm assuming this has happened. What did a player ever ask you about playing time?
Oh yeah, that was especially when you have players that they're competing for time or whatever. sometimes they always look through things in their own view and they see it that they're better than someone else when maybe they weren't or whatever. My biggest thing was, like you said, some coaches have open door and some don't or whatever. And my biggest thing was I had an open door. You can come to my office, talk to me whenever you want. But I always told the kids, I'm like, listen, if you're going to come talk about playing time, then the one thing you're going to have to realize is I'm going to ask you why you don't get the playing time.
Right.
And that's where I pointed out things like, were you late to practice? Do you show up on a regular on practice? Do you miss practices? My biggest thing was, if you're doing everything I ask you to do, it's hard for me to not put you where you deserve to be.
Do that. He's
Yeah.
there.
So that's my thing, was always nobody coaches, especially at high school, because you got to win. I'm not putting players out there because I don't think that they're going to benefit the program. So I would always tell them, you make it easy for me to pick you. You're doing everything you're supposed to do. You're on time for practice. You're working your hardest. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're going to make it hard for me to put you on the bench. When you're not doing those things, it makes it easy for me to go, I'll just bypass this player and I'm going to go with this one because I think I'm going to get better effort. I always wanted to hear from them what was the reasoning why make me believe why I'm leaving you off as a bad idea. And I said, but be prepared, because I'm going to ask you the questions that you probably don't want to answer, because that's why you're not there.
Yeah.
So I put it right back on them, and it did. Some players would come in, and the players I liked when they came to ask me said things like, they never asked about the playing time. They said, hey, coach, is there anything that you see that I'm not doing that I could be better at? And then that would give me an opportunity. Yeah, I'm not defending my choices. I'm not doing any of that. I'm now coaching again, and I'm telling you what you could do better. And so that eliminated any kind of offense in my direction.
Approaches everything. Saying it that way sounds better than, how come I don't get playing time, rather than what can I do to improve?
And that's exactly what I told Dylan. So with Dylan, so in this story, Dylan texts me, and I felt kind of he was upset, right? Yeah. It's kind of, hey coach, you told me to do this. I went and did it, and now I'm in trouble. And it was almost like, no, that's not what I said. What I said was, like, yes, you're trying to figure out why I'm not getting playing time. You don't ask about playing time. You ask about, how can I get better? In this example, Dylan's a pitcher, outfielder, and has interest in playing some second base. And he's noticing the second baseman is not doing very well. And he notices there's a lot of outfielders. And so in his mind, maybe I'll try and go play some second base to give me a better chance at starting, right? So which is good. He's thinking about that. And so that was the approach. So all of us will take or listen to coaching, but it can go in here and out the other. And he interpreted it a certain way and went and talked to a coach and got a result that wasn't favorable to him, right? So he learned a lesson. Being a young 15, 16-year-old.
I think they're over it now. They've moved on. And
they'll get over it in a day or two. And the emotions will go through it. So for you then, right? So you're back. How do I handle this? I think we need to allow what you just said. Allow him time to process it, which he's going through that 16-year-old mental and emotional turmoil, if you will, and trying to, now I'm all screwed up. And I'm like, no, you're not. You went and asked a coach, you approached them the wrong way. Hopefully you learned a big lesson here. Right. So you can, in your mental state and capacity, could be like, yeah, that's what happened. And so you give him space, giving him space, because you don't have to answer any of his questions. Right. You're not the baseball coach, your mom. So I think
have the answers.
Yeah. So you didn't do anything wrong.
Okay.
But you feel like you did, because you feel like you weren't there for him in a way.
I didn't help. I was supposed to help him all the time. I'm the mom.
Yeah. Here's the truth, though. He's 16. He knows what to do.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what to do.
Like you said, after 5 days or whatever, we're all back to normal. And it was more of it didn't need to be as big as it was, I think.
Don't you guys think, like, going back to your teenage years, that's when you learned that kind of mental toughness and resiliency? Like, when I played for a coach that was as hard as they come. I think Coach Fairless out here in Las Vegas, I don't know, recent Coach Fairless. I've heard of
Oh
him.
yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Old school, cussing at you every day, calling you all types of names. But somehow we won state championship after state championship every year. And we felt like we were the toughest kids on the field. And you're coming into our house, you're not beating us here. And then we're going to go to your house and kick your butt. Good. Yeah. But isn't that interesting, Jody? Like you had that weight of like you did something wrong.
Yeah.
But what my whole point in just sharing that with you, like you had a circumstance of David shared information with you, then you had a thought about it. And that thought created that feeling.
Yeah.
The feeling created is more in action.
Yep.
You put up the wall.
Yeah.
And then what do you think what was the result when you put up the wall?
Now that I look at it, maybe it wasn't so bad, really, because it let them talk. I didn't really give a resolution. And that's where I feel bad, because I didn't have a resolution. But I did let him talk about it. And then he said he would talk to you about it.
And not to be like, that's why you hired me.
Right.
But because it's not your responsibility to provide a solution, because you're not a coach.
Right.
You're there to support. Does anybody have any thoughts on Jody's story? Any extra words that that maybe come to your mind?
I would say the one thing that I've been doing lately, based on the work Chad did with my son Gabe, is that sometimes when Gabe gets to, because he's the one that did the class, he did the lessons, he did all the stuff, and he took it seriously, even though he's 12. He's pretty good about following through with stuff. Now when he runs into like little troubles or whatever, or I can see him doing some of the stuff he did before, I always, if he has questions, I'm like, you took Chad's class, what would Chad say to do in his class? And then usually he will talk himself right through the answer that he needs to, because he knows.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, are you sure Chad would want you to do it that way? And then, oh no, that's probably. And then, so I just keep referring him back to the training a little bit of, it's already in your head. Why don't you use what you've got and then let me know? And then, and that's what he's been doing. He works his way through it. Just reminders about what he did. So far, that's been working pretty well for me, I feel.
That's great. Thanks. That's a good idea. A reminder. Hey, remember what you learned.
Yeah. And that's why I try to share like at least those PDFs with you guys. So you have an idea of what's happening, what's going on, and get a feel for it too. But the whole idea of coaching is not for someone to I think it's great for someone to always have a coach to go to, but also get to the point where they're like, I don't necessarily need a coach. I want to coach. Like I want somebody to go to when I feel like I need it, and not someone that I need is someone there to hold my hand all the way through, because they're the ones performing. And I, as a coach, have to be like, I try to be very aware of telling people what to do, especially you guys as adults. The truth is, like any coach, like Jody, I have no idea what the right perfect answer is for you.
Right.
Because that would be ridiculous for me to know that. But I could talk to you and share with you, this is what you're thinking. This is what you felt. You created that with your thoughts, and your thoughts created that. The results are connected to that.
Yeah.
So now you're aware and you can self-correct if you feel like that's a huge thing that you have to correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Cool. Mr. Ron out in Pittsburgh. You got anything for us today?
Not really. It's been a tough month because Jonah's been down. He's had a little league shoulder, so he hasn't been able to throw. And then he got sick yesterday. He passed out twice this morning because of duration. So
a
little bit of a rough
day of passing out. No big deal.
We got him to they gave him some IV, and he's just a little tired.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been a rough month health. Other than that, he's kept a good mind about it, and seems like he has.
Yeah. So he's going through an arm injury. How are you handling that as dad and watching the process?
Probably not as great as he's handling it, to be honest. He's supposed to start throwing this Thursday or Friday, so he should be okay. And I just worry about him. I just worry about that arm.
Yeah. And why?
I just have a fear of arm injuries. I don't know why, but
What's the worst case that could happen?
he'd have to be down for a little bit, but more than he is. But
Or surgery, right?
Research, yeah.
Yeah. I just and we you know this. I went through that with my son. Had Tommy John surgery.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I guess because I've been around the game forever, like, and I've had surgery myself. I don't know. You guys know this by now. Throwing a baseball is not the most natural thing in the world, and I'm
Very
not
true.
sure our arms are really meant to do that a billion times in our lifetime. Point being, like, just being aware. Yeah, worst thing could happen. He could have surgery, and
Right.
and then could never play again. That is definitely a possibility. Or he heals, has surgery, heals, and he's back out there a year later, 6 months, whatever that is. But yeah, that's you could play that scenario in your mind. What's the worst that could happen? That could happen. And okay, now how am I going to think and feel about it?
Yeah.
And can you handle that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I get it too. It's my son, it's my kid. I don't want to see him hurt. But it's amazing the resilience I've seen in kids that I've talked to over the years that do have injuries. That's their first big hurdle they've ever had, and how much stronger they come out of it, because it's been smooth sailing.
Yeah, that's his first one. That's first injury. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some thoughts about it that you could definitely have that can maybe ease your mind about it. And if it's just little league arm, it should be fine in a few weeks, and he's back at it and good to go.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what the doctor said. It was the best kind of. It was the best grade of injury he could have had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Very cool. Reese, did you have anything in particular today?
No, I was just jumping on just because it's been super interesting to watch the transformation that went with my son for the program. He has his little 3 steps forward, 1 step back moments sometimes where I'm like, not that he was really a sad sack of a kid, like he really wasn't. He's a pretty positive guy, but when it came to baseball, because the program he was with, he was used to just being on the bottom of the 12. Not that everybody loved him. They all think he's a great kid, but he just wasn't getting the reps and stuff, and so he was down on himself. Like the reminders of that. Like I'll give an example. Like the other day, we were messing with his new walk-up song. Like he wants to change his walk-up song. So we were looking at songs, and there was a song that he likes, and the main part of the song says "goated." Right, so like greatest of all time, like kind of part, right? So, but it's a really cool sounding walk-up song, I thought. And he did too, but I was like, let's roll with that, dude. Let's put that one on there. He's like, no, I can't do that. And I was like, why not? And he's like, I'm not goated. And I'm like, no one says you have to be, but if you don't ever believe you have a shot at it, you won't be. So you're just guaranteeing you're not. And so he was like, he's not Chad knows him. He's not a flashy kid. He's very hard. He's a hard worker. He takes things very serious. And so like for him, that would be putting myself out there that I think I'm something. And I'm like, that you're something that you are, right? Like you are going to be that if you keep pushing it. And so that's about the only thing sometimes and then afterwards I feel bad because I'm like, am I pushing him somewhere where he doesn't want to go? But then I also hear him talk about what his dreams and goals are. And I'm like, yeah, if we're going to shoot for that, you got to start believing some of that too. And I think him separating the idea of what's being a brag and what's just putting confidence in yourself to do it. And I think he doesn't want to be like a kid that shows up for other people. That's just not in his style. And I feel like even something as simple as that, he was just like, yeah, let's tell everybody I'm goated, and I'm not the goated guy out there.
Sure.
So just those weird conversations like that come up where like, I think because like his grades, he's gotten just now he's like straight A student. He's doing all these things that he's fully capable of. It's just he didn't really believe in himself that he's capable of it. He would err on the side of I'll probably fail that or I'll probably not do well. And that's definitely switched. So in school, he's killing it. But I think there's that little bit, like I said, it's that 3 steps forward, 1 step back occasionally where he reverts back to his time with the high heat organization where he just knew he was in the bottom. And so he doesn't see himself as a top performer. For me, that's the only thing I sit there and like I said, I don't I feel bad a little bit because sometimes I'm like, I don't want to push him too hard to make him feel that he has to be that way. But I'm also like, I don't want you to sell yourself short. Like Chad knows me, I'm not the guy that believes my kid's the next Bryce Harper, nothing like that. I'm not that guy. But I also want him to believe in himself enough that he can push himself to what his dreams are. And the kid wants to play. Right now, his dream is he just wants to play high school baseball. That's his goal right now. And then he's like, and then maybe I can go to college, and then maybe I can. I'm like, yeah, a lot of stuff has to align itself. But if you don't, in my mind, I'm like, if you don't believe you could ever get there, then
Right.
are you ever going to get there? So it's just that, to me, it's that fine line. I struggle sometimes and go, I'm like, am I pushing him too hard, or am I doing enough to make sure that I keep pushing him to keep reaching? So that's where I fall. It's weird when it's not my kid. When I'm coaching kids, it's easy. When it's my own kid, now I second guess everything I do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is are we that's perfect explanation. And that's the point of it, right? Is I could tell if all these parents were your basketball parents, like exactly what do this. And then you get your own kid in the mix. You're like, so you know now, like there's that we all have that uncomfort zone, right? And I tell all my kids, like when we talk about things we can control, and we're all in our little comfort bubble, and you dip your toes outside of that little comfort bubble, and I got to try and feel my way out. That's where the growth is. We know that. But at the same time, how willing are they able to do that? And I'm just thinking out loud here too, but knowing Gabe, and yes, he's a quiet, humble kid that's going to work hard. That song for him might not just be him at all. Right. So that brings some thoughts, and it makes him feel weird, whatever that feeling is. Um, that like he's not approving of that song because it's making him feel off. And that's so there he could still believe in himself, but that song might bring like he's just bringing the truth to himself. It sounds like I'm not ready to be goaded. So that to me seems like it would be a very simple, yeah, if he doesn't feel comfortable there, of course we could just pick another song and something super simple. But on your point though, Reese, like there should be some mindset in there where I'm like, yeah, but I still believe I'm really good. Right.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't have I don't
yeah,
have
I
to
think that's what it
display
is.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what was, because when I asked him, because he liked it, it came on, and he was like, "Oh, that's nice, or whatever." And then I was like, "Yeah, it is nice." And then I was because he's the one that's been thinking about changing his walk up song, and so I was like, "Dude, what about that, bro?" And then I think it was his response of, "Yeah, but I'm not goaded."
Yeah.
That made me
Yeah.
go, like, why not? No one has to be. I said, "Do you think everybody that says they're goaded is goaded all the time? Like they make mistakes too." So
I
it
don't
was
know.
just.
It seems like he's just being a little realistic with himself.
Oh
Right.
yeah, no, he
Yeah.
is. He's
Yeah.
like I said, he's not flashy. Other than his batting gloves, other than that's his source of flash right now.
Right. Yeah. And that's like back to that fine line, like with your own kid, like how much do I push him? Where's the line? Like, where do I need to stop? And okay, I know exactly where my line is. And I think there's different stages, right? You probably run experience like when Jonah was, say, 8 to 12, 13. There's like at certain, they like with where Gabe is right now, maybe we have to push a little bit because they don't know. They're just young kids. And then they get 13, 14. They start thinking for themselves a little bit. And then 15, 16 comes, and you're like, okay, I don't know if it's just high school. It's probably here's the line where how much do I push you, and how much do I just listen to Jody? You listen to Dylan and what he said, and how much did they just want us to listen? Are they? It's almost, hey, do you want? We can literally ask them, do you want me to just listen to you, or do you want me to help you solve this issue? Like you're asking them permission almost, rather than telling them what to do. And that's where like performance, I think, comes in when you leave the ball in the performer's hand. So, for example, Dylan could feel like, hey, Chad told me to do this, which sounds like he misinterpreted. So he could blame me. He could be mad and upset with me. Chad told me to do that, which wouldn't be true. It'd be like how he interpreted it. And so you see what I'm saying? Like when I'm coaching people, like I have to be careful about telling people what to do. It's got to be like that, like your inner fire, if you will. And we could talk about options. We can talk about how I am in the way, but how do we manage all that? So that's the fun part of being a parent. I tried because I knew I only had one son growing up, and he played baseball, and I coached him. I was always an assistant coach, like throughout Little League, and I tried my best because we had a pretty good relationship with you guys knowing my baseball background. I tried to not tell him what to do. I tried to wait for him to come to me. Hey, Dad, how would I do this? And I wasn't always successful with that, but I wanted him to have that, I guess, inner goal or inner desire to want to know the information, right? Hey, Dad, how would I approach this? And but he trusted what I was going to tell him too. Cool. This has been awesome. Does anybody have any other thoughts or? Everybody pretty good?
Yeah.
Cool. What do you guys think about? I have no idea what this group will turn into. It's literally the first call I've done, and what do you think of this format and this setup?
It
I like
works. Yeah.
I'd like to hear what's going on with other people, and okay. So
It's nice to get the advice.
Okay. So my thought is probably going like a bi-weekly type thing here. I continually have the thought of creating a membership that would be very similar to this, plus this setting too for like the kids, the athletes. And I get mixed reviews because athletes, when they're kids, might not necessarily share what's happening for them because they're kids and they're like, well, I don't want to be made fun of. I don't want to do this or that. So I always back off that. But and they're, as you can imagine, they're way more open with me when it's just the two of us. So
absolutely.
You guys agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's more personal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I share this with any friends that you have, which is that you can literally just go, I think, search Mental Edge Parents on Facebook, share the group link if you think anybody would like to participate in this and benefit from it. And I think it'd be fun to hear everyone's stories and create a community. And hopefully we're all learning about parenting, right? And we're trying to do the best we can, help them as much as possible without getting in the way too.
Right.
So,
yep.
Cool. You guys have an awesome week. I'll try to do some more posting on that page, and we'll plan on having an awesome Super Bowl next week, and then we'll meet the week after.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Thanks for
Thanks, Jack.
participating. All right. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.